Hello, welcome to Lackluster Reactions. I'm Lackluster Actor, here today for my final review of Yoru no Kurage wa Oyogenai, or Jellyfish Don't Swim at Night. The journey of 4+ girls, and the audience if you put your heart into it enough, and the troubles of those who create. It's honestly one of my favorite anime of the year, and more importantly, something I needed to watch right now. And by right now I mean a few months ago when I should have made this video, but we're used to it by now, so let's get started. Today we are going to talk on my thoughts on the characters mostly. I know, big shock for, well, these videos don't usually get any views, so might be a shock for someone. But I do want to start by speaking a few words on the plot. The overall plot, a group of people, in this case 4 girls, coming together to do things, is now its own subgenre. There being emotional trauma, and each of the main characters need to go through something, is also a dime per dozen. But it matters less if what you are doing is new as opposed to if you are doing it well. Look, we have thousands of isekais at this point, and still 1 or 2 per season, or if we're being honest, per year, end up standing out from the crowd. And this show, especially for those who are creatives, will find it hitting you right in your heart. You who watch my videos heard me heap praise on the girls, especially 2 of them, and you will hear me do it again today. For those of you out there who are creators in any of multiple ways, especially those in high school or those going through a rough patch in your life, this is a powerful show. I know it hit me harder for that second reason, but definitely a standout from the cute girls doing cute things trend subgenre thing. Anyway, before we get into our main 4, we need to talk about one member of our support cast, who I wish to look at as well. And no, it is not the producer, Kano's mother, though she is part of the issue here. No, we are looking at Mero Seto. Mero, the new center of Sundal's former backing member to Kano, and the reason Kano left the group. We see her in bits and pieces, in the beginning, all the time flanked by the other 2 members, always just for the reason to see what is going on in the industry, to give Kano the push to try to fast track what Jelly is doing, being more of a motivator factor than anyone I would ever examine on this list. Until, that is, the moment we learn that she is Look Idiot. And it makes perfect sense too. Accusations among Kano's mother, the Iron Lady, who even the mention of her being displeased is enough to motivate venues to bend over backwards for her pet group. All the rumors swirling about that she was the one who was sabotaging other groups, crushing their dreams just so the Sundalls could get ahead. But before the reveal, twice we heard Mero praise the producer's ruthlessness, seeing the absolute willingness to crush as a positive trait. So when Kano picked up the phone and sees Look Idiot on it, it makes perfect sense. The one person who sees the crushing of others' dreams as a good thing would of course be the one spreading the trash. Let me tell you, she deserved to get slapped. I know we work things out later, but for Kano, who loves singing, Kano, who put so much time into making other people happy, Kano would never agree with doing such things to other people. And she would never compromise success for her own songs by undermining others. So Kano was right to slap Mero, regardless of what the consequences ended up being. But luckily, Mahiru was there to talk to Kano. Not to talk to Mero, I apologize. Not someone like Kano or myself. Mahiru, who also has a history of self-doubt and hatred, was more than aware that she herself could have walked down the same path, crossed the same line, that she could not have taken back if her friends were not there to save her. And so she was able to sympathize with Mero, which is of course what Mero needed. I mean, she has been living with the fact she is the idiot for the last few years. Been living with the sting of the slap on her face for so long. She has likely criticized herself more than anyone else ever could. So the key was not to tell her she messed up, but to have someone who was willing to say they understood why someone would mess up like that. And was it a pleasant surprise when Mero was the one to stand up at the end, when Kano was at her darkest moment, to try to save her from herself. After the friction between them, after Kano losing her place in the music industry because of what Mero did, this was the one moment she had to redeem herself, as opposed to the other girls in the group. It was good to see she has left the path of someone who wants to see her rivals fail at all costs, and now is walking the path of someone who is working to earn her wins. Mero was a surprising addition to character development, with all the framing characters who just work to support the framework of the story. An old bully redeeming herself is not something I was expecting to happen, but I can say I'm glad it did. Moving on to our main cast, let's start with one of our driving forces, Mahiru Kazuki. Screen name Yoru Omitsui. I'm not saying the last name ever again, so don't have to worry about that. She was the character we started the show with, the artist who had given up on art, the dreamer trying not to dream, all before the world all changed for her. Mahiru, from start to finish, her main issue has been a hesitance with her art, all stemming back from her friends insulting her art installation that she was able to paint when young. Still a good artist, she tries to hide that fact until the day Kano enters her life. Until the day someone says how much they love her art. Until jelly is formed. Mahiru, throughout the whole season, has issues with the negative view she sees of her own art. Sure, the others have doubts about motivation or auxiliary issues, but it is Mahiru's art directly which always gives her pause through the show. Which honestly, of the four girls, is the one which most clearly shows her negative emotions. Yes, the others have issues. We will talk about them. But Mahiru fights with self-doubt from the start, not believing she has what it takes to be an artist, to be part of Jelly. She feels jealousy when another artist draws her characters better, when someone else receives praise and some comments call to replace her. When we are dealing with Mahiru in an episode, we are dealing with doubt, the perseverance to overcome that doubt. And she deals with it. While the other girls are almost always at the top of their game, it is Mahiru whose art gets the most growth throughout the episodes. When a challenger obstacle knocks her down, she comes back with determination to prove that she belongs in Jelly, to prove that her art style is good enough for the Sundolls. When the dark clouds gather, they eventually break away to a beautifully painted sky. I wish I could say more, but the final arc in her working with the Sundolls was her secondary to the others' final growth. Her artwork is always beautiful, whether it is the underground club or on the city block, but while she was the one who started the story, the backbone belongs to another. That would be Kano Yamanouchi, our singer. From the beginning, Kano is the main force of personality bringing Jelly together. She praises Mahiru due to her love of her art. She is Mai's dream and obsession. Kiui, well, not so much for her. She came on for being Mahiru's friend. But The main dream which unites the girls, the driving force of the plot, is Kano's love of music and desire to sing. However, she is not just a random ray of sunshine, even with her manic pixie dream girl tendencies. As we learn later, her main driving force is, while not acknowledging it fully herself, her relationship with her old group and her mother. The drive to get their songs known, the drive to become famous, all came back to the dream her mother thrust on her. All came back to the pressure and expectations. All came back to when she threw everything away because she found someone else was destroying others' dreams just so they could get ahead. The earliest the issue starts showing is her rush to get the song out in order to compete with the Sundolls release, which her friends were more than willing to help with when they actually learned what was going on. And that eventually led to their initial success as a group. Then when they were making it big, and when they were talking about the future, she realized she was lacking a long-term goal, and spent that episode getting a license just because that was what Kiui was doing. Both showing the cracks in her confidence and her not truly knowing what she wished to do moving forward. But then she learns Mahiru is working for her mother, and she does not take it well. While she had not revealed this at the time, it was obvious her mother was a large part of the trauma she faced in her life. A meltdown was inevitable. But inevitable or not, she, in her panic and feeling of betrayal, says the wrong thing, projecting her feelings into words which cut Mahiru like a knife. And you could see the instant regret as soon as the words left her mouth, but words cannot be unsaid. So she has no way to reconnect with her mother, and she just hurt her best friend / potential future romance partner, not letting that kiss go. With all that on her plate, it would be more of a surprise if she was not rolling in regret for her actions and for the loss of her purpose. Even when she stole attention from her rival, she still had nothing, not even an ambition for the stagecraft part of being an idol. Even when singing before, all of it was just an extension of others' dreams for her. And without solid ground to walk on, she had nothing left. But eventually, with the support of her friends and unexpectedly the support of a rival, she was able to stand up again, stand on stage again, and retake her love for singing. Not only that, but she was able to reconnect with her fans, the plans she had been told of earlier. The blue umbrellas and the aquarium in the middle of the concert. The manic pixie dream girl was back finally, after she started her spiral of depression through jealousy and loneliness. And the song was great. Not the best song, but we will get there. Kano may have been the glue which originally stuck the girls together, but thankfully she was not just one-dimensional positivity. She had issues, she was pulled down by those issues, and her friends came and saved her from just wallowing in her misery. She is the catalyst which started the show, but unlike some shows, she was also able to fall and stand back up, learning just as much as her allies. While she might not have any long-term goals, I think Kano will be just fine, especially with the other three by her side. But, me being me, it was not the main characters driving the plot who I fell in love with, but one of the secondary protagonists, the one who framed out the main cast and gave me a complete team. I went back and forth between whether Kiui or Mei was my favorite of the two, but in the end I believe I'll start with talking about our VTuber, Kiui Watase. I'm not going to get any of their last names right. I hope you have established this by now. But anyway, Kiui was the one who seemed to be in the most stable spot at the beginning, being a decently popular VTuber, being knowledgeable in editing in order to support the team. However, we learn quickly that she is a hikikomori, living locked up in her room, telling lies about how great life is doing, and relieving stress by spending large amounts of money on pay-to-win games. We also quickly learn about how she was when she was younger, a reckless kid who charged into trouble, not caring if she came off as strange or unusual, happy to be herself, until the time she entered middle school and found herself alone. The magnetic personality and unwavering determination to be herself, not clicking with others her age, others who thought acting like such was childish, and so she was alone. Until she became a part of Jelly, until she could use her knowledge of editing and building an online presence to help her friends succeed, until she was called out to places like the home of a friend or the DMV to get her motorcycle license and make random friends with a random person we never really had much explanation of what her deal was. Either way, she was able to come out of her shell, able to become unapologetically herself. But then she was doxxed, and she was the one hit the hardest. Having the fact she was Nox Ryogasaki exposed was one thing. Her real face and the fact that she was a hikikomori was another. Especially with old, we'll call them friends in the loosest terms, friends who still had her number. Friends who unfortunately she ended up running into at a time when she was out and about. There were several great moments for our characters, but the framing of that scene, where those who called themselves her friends were there, bad-mouthing her behind her back to Mahiru, intercut with the hero of the arcade game and herself at the fullest of confidence. Even when she withers under their gaze when they do turn to her, and talk about trans and how trendy it is these days. Again, quick way to get on my bad side. Even though she withers, she does step forward, does proudly defend both herself and her persona, standing up for the first time in so long. Everyone wears masks. You do not act the same in front of your friends as you do in front of family as you do into the general public. But for some, masks are hard, and they have trouble building them for certain situations. Honestly, Kiui is not one to build a mask that is appropriate for a normal setting like school. But when it comes to a situation where she can go all out, like as a VTuber, that is where Kiui is able to maintain her shine. And though Nox was a few more steps removed from herself than the regular masks one wears, Nox was a precious persona to Kiui. And seeing her stand up fully when her avatar is insulted shows just how much of herself is in that mask. Kiui is as great as she bills herself as, even if there is no point in the present day where she believes it. As much as school is trivialized as something everyone goes through, there are plenty who find it draining. Believe me, I did 2 decades of it. But I'm glad to see that despite turning her back to school, Kiui is still going forward in her own way. May whatever she does in the future continue to be a success. Which leaves, after much debate, Mei Takanashi. And I got that last name right. The one who crafts the music of the group. The obsessive superfan of idols, especially of Kano's former idol persona. And the stereotyped lesbian of the group, with Kano kissing Mahiru being something which unfortunately was never addressed again. Missed opportunity. Mai, who we are told right away, is someone who has no friends and is a social outcast, likely because her real name, Kim Anok, makes it clear she is likely at least part Korean. 90% sure, but it's never actually addressed. Either way, when she was at her worst, when she was, if I am being honest, going through the hardships like the others are going through now, she was saved by Nonoko Tachibana, Kano when she was with the Sun Dolls. For many people, there are stories that stay with them forever, stories that save their lives. I cannot tell you how many dark days I have had had written by Agatha Christie or Ryokishi07 or random fanfic writers on the internet. I see you guys as well. And that is Mei. When she met Nanako, she managed to turn herself around, managed to get herself out of much of the negatives in her life. Even if she was still not friends with anyone else, she managed to push herself on to write music that Nanako could sing. When the strongest conflict she faced with being that Nanako was gone, and only Kano remains. Change tends to be hard, especially to those who are alone, who put so much into characters in the works of fiction, which I do not believe many of us would argue includes idols. Nanako was someone who was there for her when no one else was, and I know acknowledging that Nanako was never coming back must have been hard. But she did. And from there, Mai is actually sidelined for a decent part of the series, because, again, her darkest days were faced when Nanako saved her. She is out of the center of most of the conflicts for most of the rest of the series, while the editors slowly deal with their inner demons. To the point that there was a real chance Kiui was going to be my number one at the end of the series. Until Kano and Mahiru hit their wall, and Jelly began to fall apart. Until the announcement that Jelly is going to retire. Until she spends the whole day, maybe longer depending on how the time passed, trying and failing to help Kano. Until she saw her friends drifting away. The first real friends she had in her life. The first group she was a part of. A place where she, as an outcast who was obsessed with idols, actually found a place to belong. And so she sang. She sang through tears, she sang off-key, she sang in front of tens of thousands of people she did not know. But she sang. She sang for the person who saved her, the person who she wanted so desperately to help but could not. She sang for her other friends, the ones who felt like they could do nothing to fix the situation and were just going to passively let what they built fall apart. And she sang for herself. She and everyone else who were touched by music, by idols, by friends. And in my opinion, despite all of the great music of the show, it was the most beautiful song in the entire 12 episodes. Mei did not have as many problems to fix as the other girls, but in the end she was the one most committed to Jelly, to keep the first group of real friends she had together. There was plenty of wonderful character moments throughout the show, but Mei completely stole it from me. A stellar performance and a stellar character, through and through. Which brings us to the end of talking about the four girls. All of them strong characters which made a strong central cast. But, as you might have noticed, there was still some runtime left. Well, this is a show which involves those with creative drives coming together and facing their flaws in the oft-idealized version of high school. So this seems like a time to talk about something which I often do not. Me. I have the short intro on the main page, but seeing our girls and relating hard to them, all in some way, though, again, some more than others, they inspire me to tell my story, even if this is a video which the past shows no one will probably actually watch this. So, but anyone who is actually watching, feel free to leave while I do something I need to do about me. So, sorry at the beginning, I have always been an introvert and a chronic screw-up, and likely autistic. My parents never had me tested, but I show a large amount of signs like stimming behaviors and not like being in places with strong smells or lots of noise, like a room where everyone is talking at once. And most pertinent to my talk today, I have trouble making and maintaining relationships. There are times when I have actually tried, but for me, connecting to others and the usual things needed to maintain anything except the passing acquaintanceship is tough. And that's not even factoring in that I am bad at names and faces and to the point that I blank on the names of people I should know all the time. And conversations, I find a drink to be part of a conversation I have no interest in the topic of, and have difficult jumping in to add my parts of conversations that I want to be part of. So I just usually sit quietly, who is alone in the third row of whatever I'm doing. Their only company being books. But I love books. Books were there when no one else was. Animation, both Eastern and Western, were there for me when no one else was. Video games were there for me when no one else was. Ever since before I had even gone to school, when the image of game shows and a female thief dressed in red was the image on my screen. As far back as I can remember, fiction was there when I was unable to even emotionally connect with my parents. And ever since then, I was one who enjoyed telling stories. I have memories of when I was 3 or 4, when I, my brother, and 2 of my cousins put on a, play I had came up with. Even with television, even and even with television and games, I did regularly play make-believe with my brother, expanding our world together with various shows we had watched, horror movies which I fell in love with in late elementary school, to enhance the dread of some of the scenarios, and included video game characters I never actually played. Just read the plots, found them fantastic, and wanted to add random man whose spider crawls backwards and fights with blades on all 4 of his limbs. High school, I would finally find something that I enjoyed doing with others, speech and drama, as opposed to every sport my parents tried to force me into, just try. And in college, I would join an anime club and gain people that I still do talk to weekly. But the 3 constants of my life were I was always alone. I was always on consuming media, even if it was summaries of things that I could not get my actual hands on. And I would always be writing, looking to turn things I love into stories, making something more original, putting emotions I felt into short poems as opposed to actually being able to express them to other people. Of course, I have tried to make novels in the past. I mean, they are the grade A end all to be all for modern writing. So why not try, right? Well, there were various false starts, and in the end I sat myself down and admitted my greatest fault. I cannot speak realistic dialogue in real life. What made me think I was going to get fictional people to speak anything close to compelling dialogue? So no, I do not have the skills in me to write an actual novel. Not that that has stopped me writing, however. Nothing in my life has stopped me from that. That includes COVID. Overall, COVID was actually pretty fine with me. An introvert who had the epidemic hit right between law school and finding a job, all the time in the world to write to I actually believed science and so managed to never get sick with COVID. It was a relatively good time. Except that one day I woke up and realized I had not really talked to anyone for over a year. Brief pleasantries with my family, sure, but for an entire year, I do not think I even said more than 2 sentences at the same time. So I got to work and took on a few projects to get out there and interact with people again. I actually posted some of my more compelling writings on AO3. I took part in local productions of the Addams Family musical. I was Lurch, by the way. And most prominent to the topic, I started a YouTube channel. And then I started this second one, whose purpose is just for me to talk. And here I am, lackluster productions, because I always knew that this was never my ambition, and while I might poke and prod every now and then about improving something, the honest truth is that my ambition is that of a writer, not this. This is fun, but not enough to learn to edit videos, or pay someone to edit videos, or spend money on more than the cheapest tech I can find to try to make improvements, especially with student loans that's still hanging over my head for at least another year. There are some great reactors, but my ambitions for the medium are never going to go beyond just hanging out and having a few people decide they would rather watch the episode with me than alone. And as for my writings, as I should probably talk on those who actually care, I have actually been publishing a few of the past 2 years. I will not get into details. I am the kind who lurks in the shadows and uses different username for everything I use. I suck at promoting myself as well. That said, say that and adding in that I have a small third-party books for Pathfinder Starfinder that I released, that should be enough to connect some dots. Well, third-party-ish. It is published through Paizo's site, but anyway, that's not important. But in the end, that is me. And that is also the end of this beautiful series. Again, props to all our girls, but the studio which brought the show to life. It's always good to have a show on the schedule which gives you a good cry. Either way, thank you everyone as always, and see you next time.